But guess we're going to talk about cells, since that's what we've been studying for 2 weeks. Sounds good to me. All right. So, a lot of the test is prokaryote versus eukaryotes. We talked a lot about that in class. We talked about that in middle school, so hopefully you have a pretty good grasp. Remember, prokaryotes are much less advanced. Pro means no. They have no nucleus. They do still have DNA. They do still have nucleic acid, but it's not found in a nucleus. They don't have any membrane-bound organelles. So they don't have any internal membranes per se. Prokaryotes, they do have a cell wall. They do, share that with a plant cell, but no nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes are much smaller cells than eukaryotes would be. That's about it. Plant cells, plant versus animal cells. Okay, remember plants have a cell wall, and plants have the chloroplast, the site of photosynthesis. Okay, so that's the two main differences between plants and animal cells. Animal cells, as far as what they have that plant cells don't, animal cells have lysosomes, and then they have centrioles. Lysosomes and centrioles are the two things that animal cells have that plant cells don't have. But you were talking about like the organization of life. If you go, cell, tissue, organ system. Make sure you kind of remember that. Again, should be a review, but cell, tissue, organ system, organism. Okay. Do all eukaryotic cells have a cell wall? No, they don't. Remember, animal cells are eukaryotic, but they don't have a cell wall. So, let's see here. One of my kids is up. All right. So, matching. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matching. It's the exact same ones on your review. So, anyway, hey, what's up? You're gonna have to wait. I'm in the middle of a review. Cole's asleep? All right. Let's go put a show on for the kids. They sleep with the TV on. I know. Dad of the year. Anyway, you got matching, which there's like 7 of them, and you need to make sure you look at the ones that are on the cell review. This the exact same 7 ones. So, all right, we just got to pick something.
What are you talking about?
I'm doing a review for my kids. Here, you're gonna watch Dino Trucks, all right? It's a good show. All right. All right. Good night, guys. Love y'all.
Dad.
What? Oh, whoops. Good night, guys. All right. So, which has a larger vacuole, plants or animal cells? If you said plants, give yourself a thumbs up. Plants have really huge vacuoles. Animal cells, they have vacuoles, but they're not very big. More prokaryote versus eukaryote. Yeah, I think you're good on that. Remember, both prokaryotes and eukaryotes both have ribosomes. What do ribosomes make? Proteins. So, in other words, do both prokaryotes and eukaryotes have proteins? Well, sure they do. They're both living things. And since the last chapter we talked how, all living things need those 4 biomolecules. Proteins is one of those biomolecules. So because prokaryotes and eukaryotes are both living organisms, they're both going to need protein. So that would be a similarity they would have. Let's see here. What does a cell membrane do? I mean, that should be a pretty simple one. If you look at this picture here, okay, you see like number 3. I know it's backwards, but the little watermelon-looking things, those are chloroplasts, okay, of a plant cell. If you take a bunch of those out of a cell, what process is that cell going to have a hard time doing? So what do chloroplasts do? Photosynthesis. If only certain things are able to get in and out of a membrane, what do we call that membrane? Semipermeable. Don't forget the difference between active and passive transport, and make sure that you know some examples of each, especially passive transport. There were 3 main ones: diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated diffusion. Those are all types of passive transport. Remember, passive, no energy required. It's like you're floating down the river. Active transport, energy required. It's like you're swimming upstream. If you put a cell in salt water, what's the cell going to do? It's going to lose water because it's hypertonic. More solute outside the cell's going to lose water. If you put a normal cell that's not used to being in water, in fresh water, what's going to happen? The opposite. It's hypotonic to that cell. Like, a plant that it doesn't live in water, and you soak it in water, water's going to go into the cell because it's hypotonic. So make sure you know that. What is ATP? We've said this a few times kind of in passing. We haven't really harped on it because that's not till after we get back from Thanksgiving. But ATP is cellular energy. So if you see a picture with ATP in there, you ought to know that energy is being used. And if energy is being used, is that going to be passive or active transport? Active. Okay. Another kid coming out. Gotta make this fast. Yeah, another one about salt water. If you have salt water, put a cell in salt water, what's going to happen? Cell's going to shrink. Root cell, like roots taking up water. What would that process be called? Anytime there's water involved, passing a membrane, it's called osmosis. Osmosis. What? Say goodnight. Say goodnight, everybody. Say goodnight. Don't pick your nose. Just say goodnight. Good night. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.